Did you know that more than 90% of you are not subscribed? Let's fix that. Those are rookie numbers. Alright, we're back here with another 3x3. Last time I delved into my top 9, 10 video games of all time. Or not necessarily my top 9, but just for me personally, were the games that shaped who I was. And to this day, are games that I still play and frequent and come back to, or just have a soft spot for. And well, continuing on, again, once before I did an anime 3x3, which I do plan to revisit because that 3x3 has changed a lot over the years. But now we will be delving into TV shows. And now I'm going to be open and honest about this. This is easily the hardest 3x3 I've had to make, just because as someone who in recent years has only been consuming anime, it's been hard to filter out just like, alright, what's stuff I've watched that isn't anime? There were some spots where I had to really think back and be like, alright, what can fill in this gap? And well, we're gonna make this into an interesting sort of game. Instead of just reading off all of them at the beginning and then going through them one by one, I'm gonna make it a mystery. I'm not gonna be going in any particular order either. I mean, I will save, I'd say, the big four for the end. I think a good place to start is the cartoon that started it all for me. I mean, not started it all. It's the cartoon that is still stuck with me through my early childhood, still to this day. That, of course, being SpongeBob SquarePants. I mean, come on. As a child growing up in the early 2000s, of course this is gonna be on my list. The first 5 seasons of SpongeBob are some of the most untouchable pieces of comedy, cartoon media ever, I'll say. Of course, memed to absolute holy hell and back all the way to this day, for good reason though, because it's very memeable and it's very funny. I mean, what more can I say to praise SpongeBob? Like, I still have immense nostalgia for the movie as well. How old was I when that movie came out? Because that was 2004, right? Yeah, 2004, so yeah, I was barely alive. I haven't watched, like, the new wave of movies. I mean, everything, like, there's still some episodes in, like, the later season where it's just like, yeah, that's still funny, but I don't know, it just turns into such a weird, like, grotesque mess going into the later, more recent seasons. Like, obviously, I won't say that it's, like, a masterclass in writing comedy or anything. Definitely, one day, if I ever have children of my own, I will make sure to show them those first 5 episodes of SpongeBob and taint their brains just like I was. Alright, next. We'll stay on like the cartoons. I know I said I wasn't going in any particular order, but I mean, the next spot on the list goes to Regular Show. Can you tell what kind of kid I was growing up? It didn't take much to make me laugh, man. I mean, Regular Show, it wasn't so much for the comedy. It's like, yeah, the comedy was there. It just was, I love just the bombastic just nature of Regular Show. Just like Mordecai and Rigby just going through their day to day. It's just one day, it's just like, yeah, let's go get some lunch. And then it leads to some just universe ending thing. It's literally every episode is the domino meme. Is it the first episode or one of the first episodes where it's just like the small domino? It's just like Mordecai and Rigby play rock, paper, scissors. And then the last domino is just like Mordecai throws rock to save the universe. It makes you just look at your crew and just like, man, it's the boys. Like, we could do anything. But at the same time, if we do anything, it could possibly lead to the end of the world. But yeah, that's the boys, man. I mean, going towards the end of the show, I mean, to be fair, like when I was watching it, of course I was watching it on Cartoon Network, and I didn't watch it in order, obviously. I mean, it's the same with SpongeBob and a lot of like these shows. It's like obviously the episodes came out like the day they meant they came out, but like watching them, it's like you just see reruns of it. But Regular Show is one of those shows where it's just like, you don't really need to watch it in order. It's like, yeah, there's some lore that's kind of integral, but I mean, obviously it's not like you can watch the last episode first or anything, but I mean, that would be interesting. Just seeing Mordecai just continuously fail to get girls, Rigby just being Risby, Pops being the lovable, jolly good show, Skips being amazingly voiced by Mark Hamill, something I never realized until too late in life. Also an interesting little tidbit in case you didn't know, Pops, Benson, and Muscle Man are all voiced by the same guy. I didn't realize that until I saw a video of him like at some panel where like he on the spot like switches between all 3. That's good talent. I like that. I still revisit a couple episodes here and there every once in a while. It still earns its spot here on the list. Now we'll delve more into some live action stuff. I think a good place to teeter off to will be down in this bottom right corner. Marvel's Daredevil. I know this is an interesting one. Be like, huh, it's the only Marvel show that'll ever go on this list, and it was Marvel before Disney acquired everything, because this is when it was Netflix Marvel. Daredevil is still out. I mean, it's not saying much. It's like it was the best of like that era of like, you know, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, Punisher, like all those shows, Defenders. And it is cool that Daredevil is now part of the new wave of Marvel stuff. You know, at least Charlie Cox is back as Daredevil, even though it's not the Daredevil that I personally love. I prefer this version of Daredevil much more. I liked these shows just because it's like they took place in Marvel's world, the MCU, but like they only like subtly referenced a couple of stuff. It's just like, oh yeah, this took place like around this time, or like this event happened. If they ever do a reboot or redo of the Daredevil show in the new Disney Marvel style, I already know, like as much as I want to see it, it's gonna be shit. Or well, I won't say it's shit, it's just gonna be Disney mid. Charlie Cox will definitely bring us all, and I really hope that we get to see Jon Bernthal as Punisher again. Like season 1 of Daredevil is fucking awesome. Season 2 has its ups and downs, but like again, Jon Bernthal as Punisher, some of the stuff with Elektra, and then season 3, bro. Vincent D'Onofrio coming back again to play Wilson Fisk. Just Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin is the perfect character, man. Perfect villain. And just the ending, Daredevil and Kingpin's fight at the end. I mean, they also did bring Kingpin in during the Hawkeye show. I know that much. Even so, like, again, those 3 seasons of Daredevil, if you haven't watched them, go watch them. I'm pretty sure they're on Disney Plus. Even so, that show is amazingly casted, amazingly choreographed, amazingly shot. Music's awesome. It was the last hurrah for the Marvel before acquired by Disney. Staying on the live action thread, I think I'll go next to the top right corner, and that being Black Sails, a show I've never talked about, but I think it's a heavily underappreciated show. It was a show that like was always on the cusp of being canceled, but I think they handled it well, all things considered, and the ending of it never felt rushed. Or I should probably explain what Black Sails is, because probably most of you don't even know. If you're familiar at all with the story of Treasure Island, it's meant to be the prequel to that, but in more of a real world, grittier, bloodier, Game of Thrones-esque style of show. And that's literally the best way I could describe Black Sails. It's Game of Thrones, but pirates. But in my opinion, it has better writing than Game of Thrones. You know, at least comparatively towards like the later seasons of Game of Thrones. It sticks the landing much better. Again, I'm not gonna spoil like anything about Black Sails because absolutely people need to watch it. Because it was one of those shows, just like doing research on it, where it was just like, it was always just on like the cusp of like being canceled at any moment, but every actor and everyone still gave it their all. The show just looked great. The writing was amazing. One of the best parts about this show, each episode going forward throughout all 4 seasons ends up being the best episode. So it's like the first episode is the worst episode, but it's still phenomenal. It's an amazing first episode, but it's just comparatively to every single episode going forward, it just gets better, better, better. Like it's so gruesome. Like if you're a fan of pirates, you know, like Pirates of the Caribbean or anything like that, or even just like you like Treasure Planet or any like pirate-centric stuff, watch this show. It was a Starz exclusive, like that service. I don't know if it's on anything else anymore, but even still, just do it, man. I need to rewatch it. It's been a good couple years. The characters, the writing, the everything, it is top notch. Now we're gonna head more into like the cores of the shows that shaped who I am more to this day. Well, I won't say shaped who I am, but just like, you know, some of the ones that I remember the most and stick with me the longest. I'll start first with Game of Thrones. Now, my relationship with Game of Thrones is interesting. I started watching it around season 6, obviously, because like when it started airing, I was but a wee lad, and I definitely should not have been exposed to any of that. But you know, as I got older, I got more and more curious, and of course, I eventually watched Game of Thrones up to that point. And god damn, man, holy, the first 5 seasons of Game of Thrones are impeccably well written. That's just mainly because they had source material to go off of. Now, George R.R. Martin had written everything up to that point. I'll even say seasons 6, 7, and 8 are not good. They're not as good compared to, obviously, the first 5 seasons, because, again, they were just flying blind by that point. I mean, even though season 6 was when things started to go downhill, I still think season 6 is a really solid season. Just everything with Jon, Arya, the Battle of the Bastards, like, I think that's all really solid shit. But then, yeah, season 7 and 8 is when things start really dive bombing. But even still, I was there for all of it. I still was there, like, right when it was released, every episode. I'll still never understand why they decided to shorten the last 2 seasons to to 7 and then 6 episodes. One day, if ever, George R.R. Martin finally finishes his damn book series. I've already accepted this point. The dude's gonna fucking croak before that ever happens. Like, we just need to accept that. Even still, if you have never watched Game of Thrones, do yourself a favor. I'm not gonna say like, oh, stop like at season, like, no, watch all of it, because you must experience what we experienced as well, except you don't have to wait a year in between seasons. Some of the most amazing, well, I won't say amazing, but just like brutal twists and turns in the first couple seasons, just the scheming, the politics, like it's, like of course there's the whole nudity thing, and like it's constant throughout the first couple seasons, but like, you know, they did what they needed to do back then to get clicks. Again, the writing, the characters, like, it's one of the few shows where the first 5 seasons, I'll say it's perfection. Like, even so, like, including like seasons 6, 7, and 8, I would still say is a solid 9 out of 10 series. Like, the show still looks phenomenal, it sounds amazing, the actors still give it their all despite the shit script they're working with towards the end. During my writing sessions, when I'm thinking of just like big fantasy, magic, battle scenes, character interactions, politics, I think of Game of Thrones in terms of a foundation for which I can work off of and use as inspiration in writing other things, because it is just that good. The last live action thing I'll touch on before I get into the last 3 on my list is, of course, The Walking Dead. Now, similarly to Game of Thrones, The Walking Dead, I would say the first 5 and even 6 seasons I think are fucking amazing. But then season 7 onward is where things start to dive bomb. I've never really talked about The Walking Dead on this channel, but The Walking Dead is easily one of my top series of all time. That's including like anime and everything, like just of everything I've ever watched and consumed. It's one of my tops ever. I haven't fully read the comic series, like I've dabbled into it here and there. I mostly just stuck with the show. It was Walking Dead and Game of Thrones that I more or less like consumed around the same time, because I guess I was getting into my 14 and deep era. Game of Thrones and Walking Dead for a while were sort of like held on similar pedestals in terms of like character writing and action and whatnot. I think in terms of overall action, Game of Thrones definitely outbeats The Walking Dead, just in terms of like Game of Thrones, like, you know, they do sword choreography, which is much more impressive than guns and fist fights. But it's the characters and the different interactions as going through the apocalypse of The Walking Dead. And just Andrew Lincoln as Rick Grimes, Norman Reedus as Daryl Dixon, all these amazing characters. Like, I'm going through kind of a Walking Dead resurgence era right now. I'm definitely going to probably re-binge the series again. Like, the exact moment where Walking Dead fell off for me, which I think, again, is where it fell off for most people, was season 7, episode 1. Which, if you watch the show, you know which episode that is. That's still, for me, my favorite episode of the entire, or maybe not of the entire series, but it's definitely top 3, just because of how well adapted it was from the comic, and also at the same time just how shocking it was, because that episode was the season premiere. Like, and I remember being there, just like as it happened, just being like, holy fuck, this is so sad, so depressing, but at the same time it's so awesome. AMC easily could have just been like, no, we can't kill an iconic character like that, even though it's such an iconic comic scene. They could have easily Disneyed. I gotta give them that. They committed. Like, a part of me is just like, I think they handled that scene even better than how the comic did. I mean, it's different though, because like, you know, it's live action. It's like you have a little bit more emotional input than reading. I mean, it depends on who you are, but also like you're following the show for much longer than the comic, because like that scene happens 100 chapters into The Walking Dead, whereas in the show it happens 6 seasons into the whole series. Like, not even just the show of The Walking Dead, like I've talked a little bit about like the Telltale game, which is one of the games I definitely want to play at some point on the channel. Like, Walking Dead, I don't necessarily recommend it to everybody. Like, if you're into like horror or like zombie stuff, then yeah. Well, I mean, if you're into zombie stuff, you probably already dabbled into The Walking Dead. It's a show that really hammers home, like, you know, the whole, yeah, the zombies are scary at first, but then the deeper you get into the apocalypse, it's the living that end up being the most terrifying. I mean, of course, the main series of The Walking Dead has ended now, and I did keep up with it. Like, season 11 is when I pretty much like wholly just stopped watching. Like, once Andrew Lincoln left the show, like once people started leaving the show, that's when I'm just like, okay, yeah, what's the point? Like, for me, the main series of The Walking Dead pretty much ends at season 8 with the end of the whole Savior arc. The way they handled the Whisperers and all that, which in the comic is like one of my favorite arcs ever. I mean, to be fair, the show like was really trying to work with what it had at that point. And I will say, like, having Jeffrey Dean Morgan is definitely what saved it in the end. And even having Norman Reedus like take over as like the sort of main character role. The Walking Dead towards like season 9, 10, and 11, like once Andrew Lincoln leaves, it turns more into an ensemble show, which I do kind of like, but I don't think it handled it that well. And of course, it has now spawned off a plethora of new spin-offs and everything. The Rick and Michonne show, the Daryl show, the Maggie and Negan show, millions of other spin-off shows that now are taking precedent. At this point, who gives a fuck? Like Fear the Walking Dead, like the first like ever spin-off, stopped being relevant after season 2, and that series is still going like 8 seasons strong. Like fucking hell. The Walking Dead still lives on, but at this point, it should just stay dead. But besides all that, the first 8 seasons, I still think, are amazing television. I've talked about that long enough. Now we'll get to the final 3. All 3 are cartoons, and these 3 are definitely the 3 shows that are going to stick with me for life. And the first one I'll talk about is Avatar: The Last Airbender. Honestly, it was really hard to make this list and like try to include more live action stuff, because it's like I don't really watch, even excluding anime, most of what I watch is cartoons, or at least animated stuff. But Avatar: The Last Airbender, what can I say about this show that has not been said for decades now? For all of these shows, like even the cartoons included, the biggest praise I can give to them is the character writing. The characters of Avatar: The Last Airbender, the world, the elements. Like watching Last Airbender as a child. Like it's one of those shows now where it's like I don't even remember when I watched it for the first time. It's just been a part of my life since birth practically. I mean, I somehow consumed the whole show as it aired. I still remember being like in movie theaters seeing the trailer for M. Night Shyamalan's Last Airbender. I have watched that. I don't remember watching it, but I know I have watched it. Like it's just one of those shows where it's just a journey, and I love those kind of shows. Or just seeing our like main group of characters go from point A, having this overarching goal, and then finally getting there. If you have not watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, what are you doing with your life? And I want you to watch all of it. Don't look up anything on episodes to skip, because if you skip those episodes, if you skip The Great Divide, if you skip any of those classic episodes, you are not watching it correctly. It's just a perfect show. Like I can't praise it more than that. It's just a perfect show. There's no guilty pleasure. Like there's just nothing. Like it's solid. Like yeah, nowadays there's episodes that like I'll maybe skip, or like even whole books that I'll skip, but it's still fucking amazing. Like the choreography, like just the utility of the elements. Aang as a character, Zuko of course is my favorite character because the Vegeta mentality. I love seeing a good redemption, you know, a character that flips sides and it feels earned. It's just one of the best like cartoon live action just shows ever made. And on the rumor mill, the new live action adaptation is on the horizon. I have nothing but fear for it. I mean, like, you know, obviously compared to the last live action Avatar thing we got, but I mean, it's just like, can we stop doing live action adaptations of animated properties? Like, obviously Disney's gonna do that and milk all their shit forever, but like, can we stop, like, with the whole Avatar thing, and also with like all of the live action anime that's been happening? It's like, it doesn't work. It's 2D and 3D for a reason. It's because in live action, it wouldn't work. It's like even with video games, it only works sometimes. Of course, should I talk about Korra as well? I mean, I don't include Korra with this, but I still think Korra gets shit on a little too hard. Like, I think Korra it's a decent show. Like, obviously, compared to Last Airbender, it's not nearly as good. But with the story it's trying to tell, I think it does it fairly well. Like, yeah, it kind of sucks just because, like, each season pretty much resets itself because it was always on the fear of cancellation. So it's like characters go through this whole arc, and then, like, you get to an endpoint, and then next season, everything resets. Arc, endpoint, reset, arc, endpoint, reset. I still think Book 3 is the best out of all of them in Korra. You know, the whole Zahir thing, just because the action's really good. All right, last two. The top two. The pinnacles in terms of my favorite shows ever. And the first one I'll touch on is Transformers Prime. Gotta throw some Transformers love in there because I was definitely raised on the Transformers, all the way from G1 to the Bayverse. Pretty much every single Transformers show that's ever existed, I have dabbled into it in some form or another at one point in life. But Transformers Prime is still the best, I would say. Is it a perfect show? Definitely not. Transformers Prime, I'm sure, can be quantified to some people as a guilty pleasure. For me, no. Like, there's enough there where it's like, no, this is a solid show. For me, there's so much nostalgia for it. And just, like, doing research on just, like, the mess that it was to make this show, like, it kind of adds a little bit more of that love to it, because like there's still that progression. It's like the first like 5 episodes were meant to be the only thing that was ever made for it. I mean, this was another show that was always on the fear of cancellation. That's an interesting theme. I mean, Transformers Prime is only about 2.5 seasons long in a movie, but I mean, Transformers Prime, like, there is plot hole galore, so many unutilized like story beats and characters that just went nowhere. But I don't know, I somehow still love it. It's just because, like, you know, Frank Welker and like Peter Cullen returning as Megatron and Optimus. The voice acting in this show is really good, and like there's enough there with like each of the characters for both like the Autobots, the Decepticons, and even the humans. Yeah, you give a shit. Like, again, even with the human characters, which says a lot. Oh yeah, and also fucking Steve Bloom as Starscream. Like, come on. The action in it is surprisingly good. Considering, like, the limited budget this show had, like, it looks fairly good. Of course, there's a lot of reused assets and certain stuff, and a lot of actors had to be cut and killed off pretty quickly to save for budget. But again, it's just a fun experience. It's more of like this show and the last show I'll talk about, which if you know who I am, you can probably guess who it is. Like, it's just like that gritty war tale, because it's like literally like the Autobots. By the time like we pick up with them in the show, it's literally only a group of 5 Autobots against this entire army of Decepticons. And of course, like the group slowly grows, you know, like more people get brought in, more Autobots. And just the way the show ends, because I mean the movie also wraps up some stuff. The show as a whole is a mess. I will not say that it's written well, because there's definitely a lot of plot holes and whatnot, but again, this is my personal list. I think that it's still, in terms of character stuff, it's just fun. And if you're at all into Transformers or just like into fun cartoons, Transformers Prime, it's hard to find. Like, it used to all be on Netflix. I think only season 1 is on Netflix now, which is weird, but you can find it like on like Vudu and like other sites. It's just also the music in this show. Brian Tyler's score for it, the main theme of Transformers Prime, is one of my favorite show themes ever. It just makes me so emotional, man. And of course, there's the sequel series, Robots in Disguise, which I don't need to talk about, and I'm not gonna talk about because it's dog shit. Like, Transformers Prime is also the sequel series to the War and Dawn of, or whatever, the Cybertron video games. It's in that, the aligned continuity. But I know that there's also stuff which, like, going forward, it retcons a lot of stuff, but it also, you know, it doesn't matter. The show can exist as it is. Just, you know, the 3 seasons, the movie, it's fun. You can watch it pretty quickly. It's just a good time. Alright, the final show on this list. Can you guess what it is? I'm sure you can, considering that I've praised this show endlessly forever since the dawn of this channel. That, of course, being Star Wars: The Clone Wars, baby. Holy shit. How much more praise can I give to this show that I haven't already praised? It's this and Transformers Prime where it's just like, it's just a solid 3D show that had such limiting factors at the beginning that you just see grow, get better and better, look better and better. And while there may be some sloppy messes of writing and whatnot in different holes, by the end, you can't help but cry and be like, holy shit, I love this. Of course, Clone Wars is different for me just because, like, I've seen that show from episode 1, day 1, all the way to the very end. The characters, the music, the writing, the animation, the everything, the voice acting, the fact that, like, it saved the prequels, and even, like, outside the whole movies and everything, like, I can watch Clone Wars just as it is and not, like, watch anything else and love it. Like, I've thrown this around a lot with myself. It's just like, when the day comes when I maybe get to show my children the wondrous world of Star Wars. I mean, I've already decided, just like, yeah, I definitely will show them the movies first, and I will show them original trilogy first, and then prequels. And I think after prequels, then Clone Wars. Like, I know there's this thing where it's just like, no, you should watch Clone Wars, like, you know, in between 2 and 3, because then it makes it, but no, because I think it works better. I don't know, just because, like, I wouldn't want it to be such, like, a jarring change, because, like, you watch the original trilogy, then you watch episodes 1, 2, and then you watch this whole long-ass cartoon, and then episode 3. I would want to experiment with that, though, just to be like, does it make it would make episode 3 more emotional, I think. But I don't know, just like if there would be just that disconnection, especially in like a child's brain, between like live action and animation, where it's just like, these aren't the same characters. I don't know. We'll cross that bridge if we ever get there. But yeah, Star Wars: The Clone Wars, there's not much else I need to say about it. Like, I will continue to praise it till the end of my life as one of the best cartoons ever, and still the best Star Wars product, period. I don't care what you say. I mean, aside from like the original trilogy, obviously. But for me, it's just so packed full of nostalgia for me. I mean, with all these shows, there's some modicum of nostalgia that will stick with me for the rest of my life. just like the rest of these shows. Whew, that was that. This was my 3x3 of all the TV shows that are not anime that have influenced me or just stick with me. Again, this was really hard to make, just, trying to filter out just like what is not anime that I've watched. These are fun, because again, these give you an opportunity to just delve into just who I am as a person. Stay tuned for more 3x3s that I will definitely visit in the future. Like, I have like movie 3x3s, I have like a character 3x3, and I'll definitely revisit my anime 3x3 in the future, because again, that one has changed a lot since I last showed it. Thank you all for joining me on this. I'm Lancer. Thanks for watching.